Hello there and good evening. I'm Ronah Nahabwe with Winnie Wiyinza Naka, which you understand language. This is Business Today and thank you for joining us. Before we kick it off, let's look at our top stories.
In Business Today, ERA and Tanzania's Energy Authority secure African development funding to revamp vulnerable database management systems. Agricultural Ministry coughs out 200 million in dairy equipment to support production cooperatives. And KCCA has shut down several central businesses over ground rent as traders decry poor infrastructure.
You're welcome once again to Business Today and thank you for joining us. I'm Ronah Nahabwe. Now to kick it off, Dairy Development Authority and the Ministry of Agriculture, Animal and Industry and Fisheries have today donated equipment worth 200 million shillings to farmers' cooperatives. Frank Tumwebaze, the ministry head, has urged farmers to use the availed tools to ensure quality milk production and market standards. Pedson Mumbere reports.
So it's my pleasure to hand over the machine to Madam Dr. Yes, former staff of my who is now dairy farmer.
Dairy equipment worth 200 million shillings has been handed out by the Dairy Development Authority to sector farmers as the industry strives to meet market standards and installed capacity production. However, Honorable Frank Tumwebaze, the Minister of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries, spoke out dirty dairy farming practices such as milking cows the same day after vaccination, unhealthy practice with potential milk contamination.
Some make those mistakes knowingly because they want to have their milk volumes not reducing, but others do it out of ignorance. So people are asking, why are cancer cases on the rise? Maybe it's because of some of the mistakes. So when DD is coming in to give you this equipment, it is all intended to improve the quality of the milk that you sell, and which milk gives many other products to the world.
According to the financial year 2021-2022 annual dairy performance report by the Dairy Development Authority of Uganda, dairy exports generated more than 382 billion shillings, exactly $103 million as compared to the previous year. Currently, according to the State Minister of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries, Bright Ramirama, there has been an increase to $320 million. That's over 1 trillion shillings.
I think our estimate today, this year is $300 million, $320 million. That's not something small. And yet we are not putting in a lot of money. And I want to use this opportunity to thank the farming community because it is all your effort.
In the 2022 Dairy Development Authority report, the country's export earnings increased by 11% despite the drought witnessed in small milk sheds. The authority attributed this growth to the increased production compliance to regional and international market standards. Samson Akankiza, the executive director, further says that to maintain this trend, government should allocate more funds towards the dairy sector.
Yeah, we have a challenge of budget allocation, which when we are given resources, we can be able to reach out to many farming households and help them in terms of trainings and clean milk production. But also we have other unfunded priorities like revamping the Entebbe Dairy Training School into a college to be able to have many technologists and technicians in the dairy sector.
Honorable Minister, DDA, you are aware, is one of the agencies that receive very little money. But the Dairy Development Authority has turned out the lives of so many farming communities.
According to the financial year 2021-2022 annual dairy performance report, once again by the Dairy Development Authority of Uganda, the national per capita consumption stood at 62 litres, far below the 200 litres per capita recommended by the World Health Organization. Despite the surge in export volumes, export destinations dropped from 18 countries in financial year 2020 to 16 countries after losing Qatar, UK, Czech Republic and Sri Lanka. Only 2 countries, that's the US, Somalia, were registered as the new market destinations. Bedson Mumbere, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Now, away from that, let's look at data management. The Electricity Regulatory Authority and Tanzania's Energy and Water Utilities Regulatory Authority have secured $595,350,000 from the African Development Bank in a movement to support respective management systems and transform the regulatory activities for maximum efficiency and revenue. Data management remains a critical component for efficiency among businesses and management systems, playing an essential role in operation. Uganda's Electricity Regulatory Authority and Tanzania's Energy and Water Utilities Regulatory Authority have received a $595,350 from the African Development Bank aimed at transforming their vulnerable management systems. The initiative, born out of the bank's flagship Electricity Regulatory Authority for Africa report, whose assessment identifies regulatory gaps, bottlenecks while providing recommendations, is yet to be implemented in 18 months.
I wish to commend ERA for conceiving such an idea and thank the project team that has worked with the bank to develop it to this stage for implementation. This initiative is a US $595,350 joint technical assistance to the Electricity Regulatory Authority of Uganda, ERA, and the Energy and Water Utilities Regulatory Authority of Tanzania, EWURA, for the establishment of a database management system, DBMS, to digitalize the regulatory activities of these 2 regulatory authorities.
One critical aspect of ERA's database management is compliance monitoring. The authority has to ensure that electricity sector operates in compliance with regulations and standards. And thus, the Director of Consumer and Corporate Affairs notes that several complaints are yet to be handled.
When you have a complaint, you call, their lines are off, you report and they don't care. Now, the system being developed means that when you lodge a complaint, it is going to be simultaneously seen. The regulator sees, the utility sees, you also see, and how your complaints being managed and handled in real time. There's no opportunity for a complaint falling off. We find this as a very big plus. For the majority of electricity consumers, that's one of the things that challenges them. They think that when you lodge a complaint, you will not get a response, or you will not even get through. You try to call, the phones are busy endlessly. You try online and then you'll be promised and nobody shows up. Now with the development of this digital management system, all that is now going to be history behind us. And then there are other things like accessing reports from utilities. You know, the regulator works on data information reports from utilities. Reports coming in, say, from UMEME, from UEDCL, from UETCL, all that is now going to be eased. When we request for a report and say UTCL submits a report, all responsible people are able to see that. In that way, there is nothing that I sent a report, you didn't receive, but I sent, but I didn't receive. All that's going to be history.
ERA will be able to monitor, collect, analyze, and disseminate power sector regulatory data and information effectively, timely, and proactively. The initiative underscores the bank's efforts to support regional member countries to improve the quality and effectiveness of energy regulation using bespoke solutions to address identified regulatory bottlenecks and create an enabling environment that can attract private investment into the energy sector.
Africa Development Bank highlights that upon full development of the database management system, revenue collection, efficiency, consumer experience will pursue a better trajectory.
Yes, even consumers systems also for the utility to know what are the real underlying issues to address will definitely enhance the consumers' revenue collection drive, and then that also translates to something. But then as to the quantum of it, that is what the system will now let.
It has happened in Ghana and has eased their regulatory systems, and there are no hiccups. So we are picking a leaf from the Ghanaians and how they did it to register the same success here. And as the country manager has said, this initiative is now going to be deployed in other countries to make sure that regulators can grow even the aspect of transparency. And ladies and gentlemen, as you know, transparency is one of our core values.
Previously, complaints at the Regulatory Authority were handled through a web-based procedure and toll-free lines. Ronah, Nahabwe, Smart 24 TV, Business Today. Moving on to the Uganda Wildlife Performance Index, as the tourism industry fumbles for post-pandemic revamp, Uganda Wildlife Authority, whose docket greatly contributes to the country's tourism sector, has released its performance report for the previous year. A 50% increase in revenue to 72 billion shillings was recorded, with a 10% rise in visitors and 367,000 at the fall of 2022.
Revelations from the Wildlife Performance Report for the last year have indicated a 15% growth in revenue, amounting to approximately 72 billion Ugandan shillings. Various factors, such as rise in tourist influx, improved park management, introduction of new tourist products, and ultimately prioritizing conservation of wildlife, among other precautions, have been contributory.
We've so far collected approximately 72 billion as of the end of March this year. About 72 billion. Now, those are not audited figures. They will change when the audit is done. But if we've done 72 in 3 quarters, it means on average we are doing, what is the average? 24? I can assure you that April to June will be less, because it is our worst year, our worst quarter in terms of revenue collection. So we might, if we got 15 billion, then I'll be talking of a minimum of 87 billion.
The 10 national parks and 12 game reserves have put in numerous tourists, recording a 10% increase, amounting to 367,000 visitors. The 2014-2024 Tourism Development Master Plan envisions a robust tourism sector, propelled by protection and conservation of the various tourism assets, wildlife inclusive. Such has partly been aided by the funding from the Finance Ministry to support respective infrastructure. Still, strategic planning and proactive measures in ensuring sustainable growth and development has been re-reckoned.
January to December of 2022, we, as Uganda Wildlife Authority, received 367,000 visitors, 869. And we were comparing this with pre-COVID. Before COVID happened in 2019, that was the highest figure that we had then was 320 visitors coming to our protected areas. So ever since we went into lockdown in 2021, we got 189,000 visitors. And for end of year 2022, getting 367 meant that we actually did great improvement. And the efforts that we are putting in together with you paid off, because we saw many Ugandans choosing to visit our national parks.
Upholding the country's tourism assets exhibited in the various attractions has been key to luring leisure and conference tourists, expanding the opportunities portfolio in the sector with growing arrivals.
One, Uganda is very beautiful. The landscapes are amazing, they're stunning. People should appreciate this particular place. In my own opinion, is very good for field work. Geography students should come here. There's also history, but it shows you how unique and scenic this place is. You know, this is a lot of chemistry here, the geysers boiling to a particular point, the male and female hot springs. But Bundibujo has a lot of potential. And when you look at all the other national parks, I think there is the biggest groups of people coming here are students.
Despite the financial instabilities like budget cuts, Investing in infrastructure such as transportation, accommodation, and tourist facilities can help to improve the quality of domestic tourism and keep tourists for longer hours. Martha Nimsima, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Now, early in the day, KCCA was on a rampage, shutting down several shops in Kampala business area on ground of uncleared ground rent. This hasn't gone well with the business community as Kasita vows to default the tax obligations provided by the city authority as it fails to address several challenges such as unmotorable roads.
The Land and Fiscal Planning Act give room to ground rent and tenants are held under contractual obligation to observe the provision. Likewise, KCCA is obliged to enforce payment of such in the Central Business District. Earlier today, several shops in the vicinity of Nakasero were shut by Kampala's Capital City Authority due to demands to uncleared ground rent, sending the community to a standstill, adding extra block to numerous operational challenges.
The problem we get today, we find our shops closed because of ground rent. But the problem, they closed the building, and up the building there is the church. So they closed the building, the people were still in the church.
Among the people you're seeing here, most of them left their money inside the shops because they can't carry it with them in the night. Above all, they are worried about the safety of their money and their goods.
Kampala's operational bottlenecks transcend taxes to involve poor infrastructure such as roads, a major challenge limiting the flow of trade and business in the city. Despite KCCA's efforts to improve roads and market infrastructure, there still leaves a big gap with numerous unmotorable roads to resolve.
Uganda ng'eggwanga ebitundu 75 ku buli 100 ku musolo gw'eggwanga Uganda biva mu Kampala.
Uganda as a nation, the 75% of taxes paid is from Kampala. Yet the roads in the city are so poor. It is embarrassing how a trader who pays taxes and rent on time is the same person whose shop is closed by people who don't provide services like roads to transport their goods.
Kampala City Traders Association spokesperson Issa Sechito has cautioned KCCA to change its operational approach and respond to their reactions as soon as possible. Else, they would encourage traders to strike once more.
Soon, tujja kuyisa ekirangiriro abasuubuzi bonna bawithholding license yaabwe kuba twakikolako KCC.
Very soon we shall announce to all our traders to withhold their licenses like before until KCCA settles these issues and starts doing the right job than pestering people by closing their shops.
Despite the numerous challenges and perseverance, traders have evoked government for intervention.
Tusaba government eteekako engeri gye tusobola kulaba nti omuntu wa wansi asobole kwesasulira mu government.
We are requesting the government to create ways where traders can pay their taxes direct to KCCA than going through their landlords who aren't affected by such situations.
In spite of these challenges, it is crucial for the Ugandan government and relevant stakeholders to prioritize the development of the road networking, including investing in maintenance, expansion and improvement of the road infrastructure. Bronya Katsime, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Now, moving on with Business Today, members of parliament have recommended abandoning what they call a discriminatory payment system where science-based workers earn exorbitantly. Ultimately, government has been advised to create a salary review commission to address discrepancies among public servants. This follows precedents set by the government in the approval of a 300% increment of science teachers' salaries at the start of this financial year.
The Ministry of Finance heeded to the President's directive to enhance salaries of all science-based civil servants this financial year, but unfortunately this came short as others were left out due to budgetary deficits. According to the Minister of Public Service, it is true some science-based workers in administration have sustained and improved payments due to consensus on a phased revision of salaries.
Right Honourable Speaker, I would like really to say that there is no discrimination. there is no discrimination. What is there in principle, and that we're not following discrimination in principle. What we are saying is that, yes, given our ability to pay now, what we have is a phased approach. And with the money available, and if appropriation is right, then progressively, we are going to get up to the pay principles that we agreed on in 2017.
Meanwhile, legislators have faulted government over a segregatory approach. Public servants, especially the arts teachers, have been sidelined at the expense of science teachers, despite similarity in gravity and qualification for their work.
It doesn't matter, irrespective of whether you are an arts teacher or science teacher, you are still a teacher and you need the same money. And we are ignoring that, yet we went ahead and endorsed the Equal Opportunities Commission. It was talking about segregation and trying to fight it. But we fight it with one hand and then we are blocking the people on another. I have here a list, and I know that 44 teachers and 44 districts in this country have not received their salary from January to date. We have ignored because they are teachers.
Salaries of one category of workers is discriminatory and must not be accepted. I'm talking from a background that I'm a scientist. I went to school, I did sciences. It is not true anywhere in the whole world that when you enhance only scientists, workers of government, that will cause development of that nation. That is not true. The little that we have in this country must be shared equally and fairly.
A 300 salary rise for science teachers in secondary and post-primary institutions was passed in the current financial year. According to members of parliament, this move was vile, however, their concern was unheeded.
No, and the Prime Minister is not following what they do at cabinet level, plus Honorable Mukasa, whom I know is an arts teacher. This business of segregating civil servants is unfair. Secondly, why don't you recruit more civil servants into civil service, other than looking at one side of science teachers, scientists alone? As we talk now, Honorable Speaker, let us look at the results of Senior 4, Primary 7, and look at the performance. They are all affected as a result of segregation between those who teach science and those who teach arts. And we cannot continue as Parliament to accept this. We fought it, we refused it, but Cabinet and ministers are still confirming the same.
Ultimately, legislators have urged government to create a salary board committee to solve related issues for all civil servants, as there are numerous payment anomalies. Samlanifa, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
That report will usher us into a short commercial break, but when we return from there, we will look at the Kasita and the KCCA clash in depth. Don't go away.